Shameless.
United in the Europa League. Europa League.
What's going on, people? Welcome to United View and welcome to a special edition of the Tactical View, looking ahead to our upcoming Europa League game in Barcelona at the Nou Camp. Here we go. Looking ahead into what we're going to expect from the Barcelona team. There is good news for United fans as Barcelona's brilliant right winger Ousmane Dembele, he's been having a fantastic season, but he is injured and won't make the game. So that is brilliant news for United fans. And Sergio Busquets here is touch and go. He also may not make the game, which is good news again for United fans as some of their best players might potentially be out. In terms of what Barca are expected to throw us tactically, they've presented quite a lot of problems for a lot of teams under Gavi with a new setup. So on paper, you can look at it as a 4-3-3, as you'd probably expect from Barcelona. It's been their traditional setup for many years now. But in terms of the way they play it in-game, it's very different, and it reflects a lot more the sort of 3-2-5 or 2-3-5 setup that most teams tend to play when they've got the ball. So what you can expect to see happening is Barcelona having long periods of control of the ball, and when they have that, what you can expect to see is Rafinha coming really wide on this right-hand side, stretching the width all the way. And on the left-hand side, what you can expect to see is a midfield box forming. So Gavi out here is more of a midfielder. What you can expect to see is a Busquets and Frenkie de Jong sort of double pivot to help them progress the ball forwards, with Pedri and Gavi up front, sort of in front of that as sort of wide number 10s on either side. And you can expect to see their left-back, Alejandro Balde, really high and wide on the left-hand side. So he's stretching the width on the left. You've got Rafinha stretching the width on the right. And what you end up with is this sort of front five shape here. And what you also end up with is this midfield box in here. So that's going to make it really tough for United for a few reasons. Obviously, the back three here is sort of what's left that Barcelona build out with. But the reason it will make it so tough for United is that the four players in this midfield here is going to disrupt our defensive setup in midfield quite a bit. So what we've seen a lot this season, particularly in the big games, is that United like to man mark in midfield. So we'll have, let's say if it was just a midfield three, it was Busquets, Pedri, and Frenkie de Jong. What we'd have is Bruno sitting on Busquets, you'd have Casemiro and Eriksen or whoever else is alongside on top of de Jong and Pedri, making it sort of tough for them to play out. But because they've obviously got the extra man in there, they've got the overload, that makes it really tough for United to do that. And what's going to accentuate that further is obviously Frenkie de Jong. In terms of a profile, as much as he's brilliant at progressing the ball forwards through his passing, he's equally fantastic at progressing the ball forwards through carrying. So if you leave him unmarked, he will just drive through the midfield, drive up the pitch, and that can cause all sorts of problems. So that's a brief synopsis of how we might expect Barcelona to play. I want to have a quick look now before we sort of look at how the teams might match up. A quick look at their stats this season, because Barcelona under Gavi have been doing some really impressive stuff in La Liga. So, what you can see in terms of their record this season, I know that's a lot to take in, but to start with, they've played 21 games. Of that, they've won 18, 2 draws, 1 loss. In terms of goals for, they've scored 43 goals already. That's over 2 goals a game, and they've only conceded 7 in the league. That, after 21 games, is a really, really impressive record. Whatever you want to say about the standard of La Liga in relation to other leagues, that is seriously impressive. In terms of goal difference, obviously that's looking pretty healthy at 36. Points-wise, again, as you'd expect, they're in a really healthy position. But in terms of goals against or expected goals, the expected goals against, almost 17 there, and they've only conceded 7. So that suggests that whilst they may not be conceding that many, in terms of the shots and sort of chances they give away, there is opportunity there to be had. So there is going to be a chance for Manchester United, particularly in transition, to score against Barcelona, but you've got to bear in mind, we can't underestimate them because they are a seriously impressive team, backed up by the data, backed up by the way they're performing, and of course it all comes down to the brilliant personnel they've got on top of Xavi's impressive system and the tactics he's been using. So, let's have a look at how the teams might match up then as we look across into this fixture. There we go. I'll load the board in now. And what we're expecting to see then. So, as we just discussed, we're expecting to see this Barcelona sort of 3-2-5 shape, or you can call it a 3-4-3 with sort of a box in midfield. So we're expecting to see Rafinha really wide, holding his width on the right-hand side. Lewandowski sort of being that central presence. Pedri in front of Sergio Busquets alongside Frenkie de Jong, and Gavi sort of tucking into this half space here, whilst Balde pushes on really high on that right-hand side to stretch the pitch as much as possible. And in a similar way to what a lot of other teams do, Barcelona are again trying to create this 5v4 overload against the opposition's last line. So you've got Malacia's got sort of a choice to make between Rafinha and Pedri in these pockets. You've got Lewandowski between the centre-backs, got Gavi sort of outside Varane, so he's got a choice there, and Deleu's got Balde and Gavi to contend with. So again, as we discussed to start with, if United try to do our sort of man-to-man pressing that we've seen before, let's say Bruno goes and presses Sergio Busquets. Obviously, Busquets, you've got to be touch tight to, because he doesn't need any time at all to get his way out of difficult situations. Brilliant player in possession is Busquets. But then that leaves Fred and Casemiro with a bit of an issue, because if they leave Frenkie de Jong unmarked, as we've spoken about, he is a brilliant ball carrier. He will just drive through, up the pitch and pick somebody out. So that is the issue United are going to have to deal with in possession. Now, the way I think United will try to deal with this is presumably with either Jadon Sancho or Bruno Fernandes on the right wing, tucking in to mark Frenkie de Jong. And the reason that you can do that is because with Balde being quite so high, you can sort of almost assume that either Balde or Rafinha at all times is not in a position to receive the ball. So Barcelona tend to build up on this left-hand side because of Frenkie de Jong's brilliance on that side. Also Gavi in that sort of space as well, Balde pushing on. Lewandowski tends to drift over into those channels as well, with Pedri sort of coming into a more central role. And the idea here is that they can play lots of combinations here because they've got fantastic technical players to do it. And then on the opposite side, as the defence narrows, they can switch it out to Ousmane Dembele normally, obviously Rafinha now that he's injured, and he'll have space to get at his man one-on-one. Now, I would back Malacia in that situation. He's got really good acceleration. He should be able to get out quickly to Rafinha and stop him causing too much trouble. So for that reason, again, I expect Jadon Sancho or whoever's playing on the right side for United to tuck in and try to look after Frenkie de Jong. In terms of where United can hurt Barcelona, what you can see with Barca is that they often, especially under Xavi, they've got a really high press. It's pretty effective, but what they do sometimes lack is ability and sort of the pace to cover in behind. So they're not the most physical of teams, and so I think what United might be able to have some joy with is getting balls up to Wout Weghorst, particularly if he can peel off into this channel on the right side where Balde might be sort of struggling in transition. So if we do win the ball back, rather than trying to play through their press, which obviously we couldn't do against Leeds, so we're going to have even more trouble against Barcelona, I think we'd be better off getting that ball out wide either side and playing really direct into Wout Weghorst, getting the team up the pitch and trying to be really ratty, win the second balls, particularly with Casemiro and Fred in that midfield. That is their game for Brazil. Really ratty, brilliant at second balls, loads of challenges flying in everywhere, and that is a game Barcelona do not want. They do not want an aggressive, high tempo, lots of turnovers type of game. They want to have comfortable control of the ball. So I think if United play a little bit more direct in this game, look for the second balls, look for Weghorst into the channels and Rashford sort of in behind as well, I think we can really expose them in that sort of sense. In terms of when Barca are building out from the back in that shape, I think what's quite interesting is obviously Christensen's right-footed here. So I think we can sort of find pressing triggers where if we can force the ball to Christensen's side, now I know Barca have got sort of an overload on this left side, but if we're touch tight, stop that ball going forward, we could have opportunities to win that ball, sort of force them to play long. And if you force them to play long, apart from Robert Lewandowski, Barcelona do not have that many physical players. They don't have that much sort of threat on second balls, that ability to dominate in the air. So United will just get the ball back 9 times out of 10 if we force them to play long. So I think that's an approach that I would take. Press high, force them to play long, win that ball back, try and build, and make that game as scrappy as you possibly can. Almost like what Leeds did to us, we want to go and do to Barcelona. That is for me how United can win this game. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is sort of when United have sustained possession rather than sort of on quick turnovers and transitions. I think sort of our best bet is trying to overload their back line, because for all their defensive record, for as impressive as their defensive record looks, when that back line is overloaded, and particularly with Marcus Rashford with the form he's in out wide, when United can create sort of a front 5 against the opposition's back 4, Fred pushing up potentially, Bruno Fernandes in there, Jadon Sancho wide right, we can cause any team problems. And I think Barcelona, for all they've been brilliant in the Liga, I think the transitional threat that we've got with the likes of Marcus Rashford, with Bruno, with Jadon Sancho, particularly if we can get Deleu's sort of overlapping around outside him, I think that's something that Barcelona aren't necessarily used to facing, and that is where we could expose them. In terms of how the game might pan out, I expect a sort of another hefty possession game for Barca, maybe 60-65% of the ball, but United will have chances, particularly in transition. we might well see Marcus Rashford out on the right-hand side again, in terms of, obviously, with Balde being positioned high. He is quick to get back in, but Rashford could still do some damage there, and potentially keeping him on that right-hand side, leaving him high when Balde drops in, could even mean that he can't quite go as high, so it kind of kills Barcelona in an attacking sense as well. But overall, this will be an exciting game. It's something that I'm really excited to see, and look, these are the games as fans we're privileged to watch. It's brilliant to be in all four competitions, fantastic to be playing against another of Europe's great teams, and these are the contests you want to be involved in, want to be watching, and I cannot wait for Thursday night. Hope you enjoyed the video. Smash a like, get yourself subscribed if you aren't already, and let us know what you thought in the comments down below. One thing's for sure, it'll be a brilliant game to watch, and fingers crossed United can get the result.